But when you carry out the correction in a way and manner that is totally wrong, and then the beneficiary of the correction gets the bad side of it, and you decide to be arrogant about it on account of your approach or your attitude, then you are in trouble.
Now that you mentioned this, I always like going back to the family unit. For example, now let's look at upbringing. There are ways that girls are being raised, and there are ways that boys are being raised. For example, a boy would say, "Mommy, I'm hungry." And whilst he's maybe playing video game or he's watching the TV, they'll now ask the sister to bring the food to him. When he's done, they'll ask her to come and take the plate, right? So now this boy would grow up sometimes to feel like,
irresponsible sort of.
He's not responsible, or like a woman is just there to serve him, or like he doesn't have respect for a woman or something like that. And the girl is going to grow up saying, "See, marriage is your ultimate goal in this life. You should serve a man, otherwise you're useless." I always say that, okay, if you want to raise your kids this way, like the boy, you should teach him that this is how the Prophet ﷺ lived. And first of all, you should raise them knowing that regardless of any gender being in your life, you should know that you're first a creation of Allah. And the way you obey Allah is going to determine how you're going to be a good son, a good husband, a good daughter, a good wife, a good mother. But nowadays, you know, they'll be like, okay, the girl now is being raised with this mentality and she loses herself. So what can you say about that?
It stemmed from some parts of the Western culture where the man is there to be served. There are some places.
Western culture is not like that.
You're talking about
the man isn't supposed to do anything. Sometimes even the children in general do not do anything.
But the West actually say that you would see in the West, even in videos in their culture, that they actually do things at home. But it is African Nigerian mentality that the man doesn't do anything because it's reality. He can say he can testify to that.
Well, in all of this, you see, there are perceptions and there are cultures. Still in the West that you keep talking about, there is this perverted mentality of gender equality. So still, it's apparently in a bid to counter, some negativities in some culture, then it's tilting towards another extreme line, because you cannot see the gender. You talk about gender equity, not gender equality, because even physiologically, physically, the genders are not the same. What the woman can do, the man cannot do. The woman can breastfeed, the woman can carry pregnancy, but the man cannot. So you tailor what is required by each gender or by each segment of society to meet what they need, and that is what when we talk about equity. Because even as I was at some discussion with my professor some times back, and we were talking about even economic equity or equal access to means of production, and she called my attention to the fact that, okay, look at this Quranic verse where Almighty Allah said, وَرَفَعَ بَعْضَكُمْ فَوْقَ بَعْضٍ دَرَجَاتٍ لِيَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا سُخْرِيًّا. So we should be talking about economic equity, not economic equality. So even to that extent. So back to what my sister has mentioned, it's important to raise our children in such a way that, one, they are responsible, they are responsive, and they are sensitive to what goes around them.
Morally upright.
And they are morally upright.
Yeah.
So irrespective of whatever culture you want to, it may not be totally out of reach to take ideas from cultures. No problem about that. But as Muslims, the Sharia has come to be our sieve on what kind of cultures we take from where. You find guys nowadays, these transgender, this kind of hairstyle, mohawk, and the rest of them. So all manners of cultures are adopted from societies without looking at times,
without seeing it through Islam first.
Exactly. So some of those cultural practices, just as I was mentioning earlier, might be born out of maybe some experiences, and they've gotten to that point, rightly or wrongly. But for us, it's important we let them see reasons in why they should think differently. We educate them, and we do not just lord it over them or push ideas down their throat, or we just rebel unnecessarily. You find a young guy, a young chap, addressing the elderly man in a wrong manner. The elderly man, of course, out of his ignorance, has held a belief for a long time. But you, the young chap, who perhaps has been opportune to go through some kind of Islamic enlightenment or teachings, in correcting the old man, you need not be harsh or be untoward in your correcting, in your bid to correct, or in your correction approach. But it's all about taking it gradually, making the old man to see reason in what you are saying, and then correcting the idea gradually and sensibly, humbly, and with respect. Because definitely it is part of Islam to be respectful and to be humble. As a matter of fact, it's an hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that he is not one of us, the young that does not respect the elderly, and he is not one of us, the elderly that is not merciful and considerate towards the young. So you could see all along the way Islam balances everything. So I think importantly, this culture of balance is what we should, even up to the hairstyle. You see people barbing more tightening and bulu. But what Islam wants us to do is, if there is a clear prophetic hadith to that effect, if you are leaving the hair, leave it entirely. If you are barbing the hair, then barb it entirely. If you are trimming the hair, then trim it entirely. Do not trim one portion and leave one portion. So
this example you mentioned about the old man and the young chap made me to remember this traditional mode of popular participation, where it's only the elderly men of a community that come together to talk about a problem. So even if that issue has to do with the children and the women in the community, they are not allowed to speak. It's just only the elderly men, and so there is this sort of disconnect, and where they don't really know what these people want and these people want. But that aside, so you spoke about the young man being able to correct and actually explain in a calm, respectful manner to the older person. So, and these older people now, they might have grown up with all their lives. They have this belief. It's a core belief that the young people are not in the position to correct them. For some, I'm not generalizing, but it happens in some instances. So how do you now approach someone that throughout his entire life, from when he was a child, he was not allowed to speak, to when he was an adult, where they did not allow the children to speak? So how do you even begin to let him know that he should at least allow you speak before even going to the correction aspects?
Okay, before I go into that, let me just go into, we have hadith and we have athar of the hadith, that's the lifestyle of the Prophet, and then we have the athar of those around him. I think there was this particular narration of Hassan and Hussein, the grandchildren of Rasulullah. They observed that an elderly man was performing ablution in the wrong manner. So they sought to correct this old man. Then they met this old man and say, I don't know how I'm going to call it, father or daddy, myself and this my brother are arguing on the correct manner of performing ablution. So we are going to perform ablution, and you are going to look at how we perform it, and you are going to tell us which of us is
direct correction.
So, and they did. This one performed, the other one performed, and the man said, okay, two of you have done well. And the man got the hint that these young chaps, we are here to correct him on how to perform ablution. So it's important that when we set out to correct people, we should know, first of all, it's an amana. Then two, we should know that it's important we seek Allah's guidance in how we are going to correct these people. I'm going to cite another example. In the Noble Quran, you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing Musa, telling him that idhab ila fir'aun innahu tagha. Go to Fir'aun, he's a transgressor. But in Surah Al-Taha, Allah says فَقُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. But when you get to Fir'aun, speak softly to him. And why? لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Maybe as a result of your approach, he might retrace his step and decide to adopt the way of purification. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling Musa, go to this man, he's a transgressor. But in your approach to him, do this, do this, do this. Maybe, perhaps, as a result of your approach, he might take guidance. So it's not compulsory people must be guided as a result of your correction, but when you have done it in a proper manner, then the correctee, if I'm permitted to use that word, the correctee or the beneficiary of the correction, we see that even if he is not taken to your correction, but he won't see you as an arrogant young guy.
Now, going back to talking about how to balance westernization or the culture that is not ours, I remember when I went to school, I was the only Nigerian in the class. So there is this way of, if maybe I wear my abaya and I cover my head, you can clearly see that, okay, you're not part of us.
It's all right.
Or maybe if people are creating cliques and having friends, okay, maybe I might say I'm not going to follow them or become their friends because they go to places that might not be permissible for me in my religion. So, but nowadays a lot of people, especially girls, are going through stuff like that, but they don't know how to handle it. And they live in environments like that. So what can you say about it?
I think importantly, one needs to be confident. One, confidence. Then two, certainty in what you are doing. You need to know the reason why you are doing what you are doing. If this is the way I want to dress, why am I dressing this way? So when you are convinced on what you are doing, then the chances are that you are not likely to be unnecessarily influenced by cultures or by peers. Instead, you will be the influencing factor in their own life. So it's important, whatever they are doing, be it your manner of dressing, be it your way of life, you need to be convinced.
And the intention.
Yes, you need to be convinced, okay, why am I doing this? Is it for, I'm just doing it because I found people doing it, or I have a reason why I'm doing this? So then you also need to build that confidence to be able to stand your ground and to be able to tell people, okay, this is me. I do not fake it.
Yeah.
So if you cannot take me the way I am, leave me the way I am. I can be your friend, I can learn from you, I can take from your culture what I feel is right.
But this is the
of
line.
course, because you always have a sieve, which is the Islamic way of life. Allah Alam.
Dear viewers, it's still the show Deen and Dunya, and the topic is faith meets culture. Now I'll ask Imam Taslim to give us one advice on how to take care of all this cultural stuff from our elders and how to balance that.
Importantly, the simple advice is knowledge and wisdom. You need to learn because you need to identify what are the problems. Then it is when you identify what a problem is, then that is when you know what should be the solution, or how can I get the solution. One, knowledge, and two, wisdom. It's something you always pray for. Allah has told us in the Quran, وَقُولْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, and always say, oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. And as you pray for knowledge, you also pray for wisdom. You also pray for humility. It's important. When you have a composition of these qualities, then you have the best of this world and inshallah the hereafter.
So the takeaway from him is knowledge, wisdom, and humility. But for me, I'm saying that so long as your culture is conflicting with Islam, we are not ready to take it. And sometimes these things will lead us to pleasing people just to do what they want. But I'm telling you that we want to change that narrative and we're not taking it. So this is still the show Deen and Dunya, and inshallah, we'll continue to bring interesting topics to you and try to find solutions. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you very much.
Jazakumullahu khair. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.